Hey guys, I'm back on my Jenny Nicholson posting schedule, so here's your one video for the year. Today our book is called The Art of Human Hunting by Sea Commissar. Can you guess what it's gonna be about? Content warning, I guess, for the most edgy shit that this author could think of. So there's that. It's not necessarily a bad read, it's just unoriginal. And that's okay sometimes. Not every book needs to be revolutionary, but it was a short read, so there's that. So our book begins with five men crowded around last year's winner named Wilbur. So Wilbur's trying to play off that he's humble about winning last year's competition. Scott, the youngest man, just turned 21, asks Wilbur how he won last year's competition. This is Scott's first hunt, so he's unsure how they really pick a winner. So, as casual as you can be, Wilbur explains how he mutilated the man last year that he caught. He, I guess, turned his face into his. No, he turned his asshole into a face. He did that by carving out his tongue and his eyeballs and reattaching those to his asshole. Rick, who is Scott's father, explains to Scott that they go by pain and creativity. That's how they choose their winner. They all vote at the end of their little presentations. There's no prize, just bragging rights, and this event is just all about having fun and trying your best. Also in attendance is Hunter and his father Steve. Yes, Hunter is named Hunter after this event. Um, this is Hunter's second hunt. His first hunt was last year, and he's like, yeah, all I did was reattach uh, my guy's fingers to his feet and his toes to his hands. So, you know, not very creative. And his dad, Steve, is just like, yeah, well, it wasn't a bad try, but we saw Casey do that years ago, so it wasn't anything new. Then the leader of the hunt, or I guess like the the main guy who's setting up this event, his name is Link. He speaks up and he's like, I thought we said we were never going to talk about Casey ever again. And so Steve is like, oh, sorry, shit. So Hunter and Scott have been friends since childhood. Hunter found out about the hunt on his 21st birthday, and so that's when he got to participate. And he had to keep it a secret from Scott for a whole year until Scott turned 21, and they revealed to him what they do each year on their hunting trip. Link explains that there are no rules, just don't die, basically. What they do is Link has this sprawling mansion with like tons of acres of land all around, and he has hired help. And the people that he hires each year as the help, at the end of that year, he captures them and holds them captive for about 24 hours before setting them loose into the field where they have traps and all these things set up, and then they hunt them. Scott's really concerned about accidentally falling into one of these traps that they have set up. Um, the older guys are like, don't worry, here's a map that's marked on the trail where all the traps are set up, so you'll be fine. Scott is still kind of trying to wrap his head around the whole thing. He's kind of like, isn't hunting people wrong? And the group just kind of stops and stares at him like he's just said the dumbest thing that he could ever fucking say. Um, Rick explains to him that since people put up more of a fight, then that means that they're real hunters. He's also like, plus it's easier than getting a lion, and he reminds his son that this is a big privilege that he is here, and he is lucky to be there. So Link goes on to explain that this has been a family tradition of his since his grandfather's time. So his grandfather used to do the same thing. He had house staff, and at the end of the year, he would choose the like a good amount for him and his buddies to hunt. Link explains that he currently has 8 staff members tied up and ready to go. Link also explains that each of the house staff members that he uh, kidnapped are illegal in the country, so that way when they go missing, they won't be reported. He's like, it's kind of a trade off because, the year prior, I let them live in my mansion and I gave them a huge paycheck each time. And really, this is their way of repaying me. Link leads them to a room with every weapon you could possibly imagine, apparently. Um, Everybody gets prepared, they grab what they want to use. Scott asks about using guns. He's like, wouldn't that defeat the whole purpose of the hunt? Seeing as how you need to be creative on the ways that you inflict pain. Rick explains that the guns are mostly for protection. The kidnapped people either get caught in a trap, or when they catch them, they'll shoot them to like immobilize them, and then they'll drag them back to the garage where they will have their fun. Hunter suggests that Scott grab at least one knife, and so he does. He grabs like a big hunting knife, and then they move on. Scott's still asking dumb questions, apparently. He's like, well, if you're not part of Link's family, why do you guys get to participate? And his dad is basically like, son, shut the fuck up. So next they made their way to where the prisoners were. There were 4 men and 4 women, bound and gagged and still in their maid or butler uniforms. Link addresses the group, hoping that they know enough English to kind of understand what he's saying. He's basically like, all right, um, as of now, you are fired. Although your jobs are gone, your lives are still intact for now. When I say go, you are going to try to escape, and if you escape, you get to live. So then he goes around to each of the prisoners and he cuts their bindings. One of the uh, prisoners kicks at Link, and Steve just blows his foot right off with a gun. And all the other guys just laugh, and this is where shit kind of starts to get real for Scott. He's like, oh shit, this is real, this is actually happening. Okay. So Link and the other guys give the employees a head start to start running, and they just kick back and drink beer for a little bit. And Scott's like, why are you giving them a chance to escape? Won't they go to the police? Link then tells Scott, really, there is no escape. Beyond his property is a 20-foot tall electrical fence that will kill them if they touch it. So then they go on to track the employees. It's fairly easy because one of them has been bleeding from the foot. So they just follow the blood trail. Soon enough, they find the man they had shot in the foot hiding in the bushes not too far away. So Scott is told to go ahead and do what needs to be done. This first kill doesn't really count, it's just to uh, get him to experience it and kind of get him over the initial shock of the whole thing. So Scott goes to the bushes, takes his revolver, and fires it at the man's head. Doing so made Scott feel great. He feels powerful, he feels in control. And in that moment, he understands why his father did this every year. So, up ahead, the road kind of forked off, so they decided to split up. All of the older guys went together in one group, and Hunter and Scott went and took the other way. So, as they're walking, Scott kind of is asking Hunter questions about the hunt and everything, and he also asks about Uncle Casey. because Uncle Casey apparently died in a car accident last year. Hunter explains that this was not the truth, that they just told him that. And uh, in reality, Casey indulged too much in the hunt. He tells Scott that he will explain it to him another time. Back with the older guys, Wilbur and Steve kind of fork off into another direction, and then Rick and Link follow the scream of a woman that they hear. So sure enough, Link and Rick found two people actually. One woman was caught in the trap. She was like dangling in the air by like 1 foot, and the butler was there trying to help her. They must have been friends or something. So Link tells Rick that he can have the butler, or Link shoots the butler first, and then he tells Rick that he can have the butler, um, that he wants the woman for his art project this year. So Link mercilessly cuts the rope, dropping the woman on her head, and he tells Rick that he's going to have some fun before he takes her back to the garage. Um, he asks Rick if he wants to join in, and Rick is like, "Oh, I'll wait my turn." So Wilbur and Steve, further on, they're chasing after their victims. Wilbur is like really hoping that he wins again this year, and Steve is really hoping that he gets a female for his art project this year. So those two split up. Wilbur finds one of the men caught in a bear trap, and so that's his victim. And Steve runs ahead and he finds a woman running and he tackles her to the ground. He knocks her out, and they all radio back to each other, like, hey, we found our victims. We're ready to go back to the garage. Meanwhile, Scott and Hunter kind of split up into two separate directions. Um, Scott's kind of still wondering about this whole thing. He still has lots of questions, but he gets the impression that he probably should not be asking those questions. So sure enough, Scott gets caught in one of the net traps. Um, Hunter is actually able to subdue both of the other victims that are out there. He ties them up and he goes and he helps Scott out of the trap. So then Hunter leads Scott to their victims and shows that there is one male and one female. Um, and Hunter explains that they can have some fun with the female before they head back to the garage. And Scott hesitates. He has been keeping a very big secret from his family and friends. He's not really sure how to go forward in this situation because Scott is gay and he doesn't want anybody to find out. He's really nervous about that. So Hunter's like, "Go on, have some fun with her." And Scott hesitates and he's like, "No, you go ahead. I'm not going to do that." And that's when it kind of the real the realization kind of dawns on Hunter, and he's like, "Bro, you killed a guy today. You think being gay is worse than that?" Hunter goes on to explain, like, there are no judgments on this day. If you want to go ahead and take the guy and have some fun, go ahead. I don't care. And that's when Scott realizes that this has been the very best day of his entire life. So everybody gets back to the art garage, and they all have their own designated victims. There's just one woman left in the woods, and Scott's like, "Aren't we gonna catch her?" And they're like, "Nah, we're not worried about her right now." Um, they call her Wild Card, so they're just kind of taking bets on how long she's going to last out in the woods. So then Link goes on to explain to Scott that the first portion of the competition is the pain part. So this is where they will have 1 minute to inflict as much pain as they can onto their victim, and whoever's victim screams the loudest is the winner. So each victim is bound and gagged to a work table around the art garage. So each man has their own workstations. It's very Great British Bake Off. Scott goes on to question everything again, and he's like, I don't get it. How is this sport? How does this make us real hunters? And Link gets really pissy about it. He's like, it's a family tradition. Shut the fuck up. So in the competition, Link goes first. He takes needle nose pliers, um, clamps down on his woman's nipple, on one of her nipples, and pulls it and squeezes it as hard as he possibly can, to the point where the nipple apparently pops. I didn't know that that was something that it could do, but it pops and explodes and bleeds everywhere. And meanwhile, while he's holding that up, he is taking a saw and he's just sawing the woman's breast off. He was about halfway finished when they called time, and he just kind of dropped everything where it was. Left the saw still midway through the breast and just kind of goes back to the rest of the group. So Rick was next. If you'll remember, Rick's um, victim was shot in the knee. So he chooses not to use any of the tools available to him. He takes his fingers and digs his hand into the bullet wound and grabs like fragments of this guy's bone and everything and just rips it out. And eventually he dives in there with two hands, just grabbing everything and just eviscerating it. Wilbur is next. Apparently, he couldn't figure out how to get his victim out of the bear trap, so he just brought the bear trap too. So Wilbur pours gasoline onto the man's injured foot and sets it on fire. As soon as they call time for him, he puts the fire out and he's very proud of himself. Steve was next. He was wanting to be very careful not to damage his victim's body. So he took a drill, like a power drill, and they called it a spade drill bit. I'm assuming that's like a wider drill bit or something like that. I don't know. But he takes it and he drives it between each of the woman's toes. Hunter is next, and he grabs an ice pick and hammer, and he puts the ice pick like up to the woman's lip, and he just like hammers it right into her face over and over and over again in different spots until just her face is a bloody mess. The woman actually began to choke on her uh, teeth and blood, I guess. And this panicked Hunter because he didn't want his victim to die too early. So he kind of does like a Heimlich maneuver on her. That kind of knocks everything loose and she's able to breathe again. Hunter asks, he's like, why would you do that? I thought the point of this all was to kill them. And he's like, well, I want my girl fresh for the art competition. So finally it was Scott's turn. He, I guess he was, okay, how do I put this? He was kind of tempted to have some fun with his male victim, but he was also really nervous about coming out to his father and uncles at this time. So he decided to eliminate the temptation for him. Scott takes the hunting knife that he got and jams it straight up the man's ass, which we've seen before in what was it? The Exquisite Corpse. We've seen that before. And he proceeds to just jam it up there and like twist it around in every way that he could. Blood and shit just pours out onto the table, and Scott is so lost in this moment. He's enjoying himself so much that he doesn't hear when Link calls time and they have to like stop him physically. Um, Link is very proud of him. Everyone else is looking away in disgust, but Link is very proud of him, and he declares Scott the winner of the pain portion of the competition. So then Link tells everybody that it's time for bed. They're gonna do the art portion of the competition tomorrow, um, and then they'll move on. So they checked the cameras in the morning, and apparently, like a few of them had gone dark. Link brushes it off, assuming it's just a glitch. It's no big deal. Wildcard couldn't have gone far. She has no chance of surviving this. So overnight, Wilbur and Scott's victims both died. The rest are still alive, and the men get to work creating their works of art. Link presented first again. He had cut off both of the woman's breasts and sewed them to her cheeks. He also cut off the lips of her face and sewed them to her vagina. Um, Again, we just saw this in the slob as well, so not super original, see. Or maybe her book came first, I don't know. I don't care to look. So Rick went next, and he's kind of prefacing the group he's like, just so you guys understand my vision, my guy seemed kind of gay to me. So I like how he did this, gay to me. So what he had done was he had cut off his guy's penis and shoved it into his own mouth. He also cut out the guy's testicles, and I think he like stapled one to where his penis used to be and then put the other one up his ass. All of these homophobic jokes were making Scott very uncomfortable. Um, Rick asks him what's wrong, and he's like, "Oh no, I can't imagine how much that would hurt. That's all." Wilbur is next. He did basically an inverse of what he had done the year prior. So he replaced his eyeballs with his testicles. He also attached the penis to the nose, which, I mean, for as much as Wilbur was bragging and like really super wanting to win this year, like, come on, that's what you got. You just copied what you did last year, but backwards. So Steve was next. What he had done was he amputated both of the woman's legs while she was still alive. And then when rigor mortis began to set in, he molded her mouth into like an O shape. And he called his creation Sex Doll. He really was not concerned with winning. He just wanted to make sure that he could use her later for some fun. So Hunter was next, and he called his creation Pretzel. He basically did the same thing that he did last year, but bigger, I guess. He sewed the legs to the arm sockets and the arms to the leg sockets, and he kind of twisted it all into unnatural positions, even breaking bones when he needed to. And it was just a tangled mess, I guess. Scott was last. All he really did was take out the man's intestines and like drape them and wrap them all around his body to make it look like he was covered in like vines or something like that. I don't know. Seems kind of basic, but what do I know? Suddenly, that's when the alarm to the house went off. Wildcard was in the house. So the guys split up to look through the mansion. Apparently, this mansion has 54 rooms in it. Um, who the fuck needs that many rooms? But this means lots of places for Wildcard to hide. So again, they split up. They made sure that the weapons room was locked. They go into the security room to where all of the monitors are to check the cameras. That had been smashed to bits. So they no longer have an idea of where she could be. So they split up again, and again, Hunter and Scott take the upper left side of the house, and they're looking through rooms, and eventually they come to a locked door. So their plan is to one of them point the gun, the other person kick the door down. And so they do that, and they break into the room, and they're looking around. They do not find Wildcard, but instead they find pictures of Casey. This was Casey's room, apparently. And so one of the pictures showed Casey with a woman in a wedding dress. And they are both confused because they had no idea that Casey was ever married. And then Hunter's like, oh shit, I recognize that lady. That's Casey's victim from last year. So then they begin to rifle through drawers and they're looking, and apparently they find something big, some evidence of something huge. So they take off to go find their dads. They show their dad, they meet their dad at the bottom of the stairs, and they show them the picture of Casey with the woman in the wedding dress and a receipt for a mail order bride. Um, I I didn't know they had receipts, but okay. Um, then suddenly Link steps out of the shadows with his gun to Wilbur's head, and he does his whole villain thing. So with his gun to Wilbur's head, he instructs everyone else to drop their weapons, and then he will explain everything. So the older guys drop their weapons, but Hunter and Scott are big old dummies who left their guns upstairs. So Link explained that the woman had been hired on as a staff member, but Casey ended up falling in love with her. But per family tradition, she needed to be hunted. So at first, none of the guys are buying it. Link goes on to say that he told Casey that he's like, look, I'll stay quiet about your relationship and I'm going to let you guys escape, but you are never to come back here. You are banished from this manor, family stuff. So then the guys are like, well, then how did he die? And Link goes, well, he broke tradition. I had to kill him. So I don't understand Link's motivation at all. I don't understand his story. His story has so many holes in it. So I don't get what's going on there. But they never get a chance to explain it because Wildcard runs down the stairs with a gun. Um, she shoots Link in the head and then she shoots Scott in the leg. Hunter tries to shoot at her. He grabs his gun, his dad's gun off the ground or something, tries to shoot at her. She ducks, but then she tumbles down the stairs and falls all the way down the stairs. So then they jump on top of her, get her subdued. So they get a tourniquet going for Scott's leg, and then they take Wildcard and Link out to the art garage. So once they get out to the garage, the older men and Hunter uh, begin to take turns assaulting Wildcard, and they ask Scott to join in. You gonna come and I don't know, but Scott finds the courage to tell his dad, you know, I think that I'd rather assault Uncle Link instead. So everybody kind of stopped and stared at him for a second, and then they all just shrugged their shoulders and they were like, all right, go for it. After that, they got to work on their art project. It's really confusing, so I had to write it down. So they cut off Link's head and hand to make a thumbs up, and then they sewed Wildcard's vagina lips onto Link's mouth as a tribute to Link's art project. Then they sewed Wildcard's head onto Link's body and also severed Link's penis and put it in Wildcard's mouth. Her crotch area was attached to Link's, so it looked like they were having sex. And so they stand there and admire their work for just a minute, and then Link is like, well, time to clean up. So he instructs somebody to call the cleanup crew, and he's like, I'll call the lawyers. Oh, by the way, Link said that he's leaving all of this to me when he goes, so it's mine now. The end. Then there was like this self congratulatory note by the author, asking the readers who they think won the art competition, and that she loved them all so much that she just could not choose. But she was partial to the interchanged lip because that was so cool and edgy. Anyway, so that's the end. I'm currently reading The Abuse of Ashley Collins. Um, I'm like a couple chapters in right now, and I already feel sick with this one, so that'll be fun. Not sure when I'll have that out to you guys, but whatever. Um, I appreciate you guys sticking with me, even though my uploading schedule is ass. So I appreciate it. Um, and yeah, that's about it. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.